What's up? I'm trying to unmute you. Let me unmute you. Why won't it let me unmute you?
That's mommy. I did it.
Hi, McCurdy.
Hey, Charlie.
Where's Nans?
I don't know.
We purposely didn't invite him because we don't want him here.
Damn it. No, he
welcome to a reminder that we can do whatever we want, and we don't have to just do this on Sundays. We can just pop in.
Oh, really?
If we've seen a movie film and McCurdy saw Air and said, it's good. So we said, let's get it on the list.
Because Charlie complained last time about not seeing real movies anymore.
Not having any real movies on the list?
There's no real movie. I'm like, there are real movies. It's just we're talking about
having crap like Plane and Cocaine Bear.
Well, we don't have any there's no like Oscar contenders. Like I would even say that like Infinity Pool is not necessarily an Oscar contender. I mean, I could be wrong come award season, but like
we'll definitely talk about that because well, let me bring it up now. Actually,
you do your. Let's do the things, right? Let's do the things.
I'm gonna immediately take back what I just said because it is relevant later, but I'm making note of it now. So yeah, let's just get into it. All right, Air. Simply titled Air. If only Air. We should put Air right above Plane. Okay, anyway. Air is the latest Ben Affleck directed film, once again teaming up with longtime buddy Matt Damon. That's
why we needed Nans.
That's why we needed Nans, yeah. Nans. To bring us, I'll just repeat, once again teaming up with longtime buddy Matt Damon to bring us the underdog story of how Nike overtook Converse and Adidas to become the #1 athletic shoe company in the world, all thanks to Michael Jordan and the Air Jordan shoe line. It's a quality film, but as McCurdy once pointed out, every year there's an Oscar contender that is really well acted, but too low key to really make any waves. This is that movie. The performances are the highlight, but the story is just too matter of fact to walk out of the theater with head and heart buzzing. It's the movie equivalent of someone telling you an interesting piece of trivia. It tickles you for a moment, and then you move on with your life. Hey, dude, did you know that Michael Jordan almost didn't sign with Nike for the Air Jordans? No, I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me. Hey, what should we get for lunch? I think that's... I walked into that movie. That's how you felt just
walking out of the movie.
You told me about it, and I was like, I think for the first act, I was like geared up, and then the transition into Act 2, I was like, cool, and then it never peaked for me. It never peaked, and this is from Ben Affleck, the guy who made The Town and Argo. You know, these movies that like peak. They peak, but we'll get to that. Let's jump over
Let's get into our little behind the scenes. And it was very brief this week because this was kind of our last minute, like, hey, let's go see it. Like, I was like, oh, I got home. Like, oh, I got time. Let me go see Air. Told Charlie about it. And I was like, yeah, this is actually a pretty good movie. You should go see it.
It's quality.
So it is a quality. I still think it's a quality movie. Now, as far as where it goes on our list, that's another question. Because I even went into this thinking like it's a top tier for me, but I don't know where.
To your point earlier, our point earlier, it's a real movie. It's not a CGI fest. You know, it's like
it is
people talking in rooms. I don't think there's a touch of CGI. It's just a straightforward story. You know, of people.
And I loved it. I liked it. Anyway, let's go on. Let's move on. And if I wanted to recommend it, I'd say recommend it. I would be like, if you want to see a movie, go see this movie. So that's my take on it. I don't know about you, but I'll get into it. So we're talking about Air, written by Alex Convery and directed by Ben Affleck, and it's also produced by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon.
Everywhere you see. It says courting a legend everywhere, but that's not the official title.
No, it's just Air. I've never seen like I don't know why That's interesting. I don't know, unless they started doing that because they were like, well, we got to differentiate it from it just being like air. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's obviously very clever, the double meaning of courting, but it's not official. It's just like an unofficial subtitle, but it's always right there beneath the title rather than, at the bottom of a poster or something,
Right. So let's get into it. This is probably the most interesting thing I felt like as far as information about this movie goes to Alex Convery. This film was conceived during the pandemic by Alex. Convery is 30. He's our age. He's younger than us, actually. But he was in his 20s when he watched The Last Dance, which I never saw. I don't know if you saw The Last Dance.
Fantastic.
Never saw it, but I've heard it's amazing, and I should probably go back and watch it.
And I'm not like a huge sports guy, but that's I buzzed through I think all 10 episodes in a day. It's fantastic.
So he basically saw it during the pandemic, and then Convery was fascinated by the Nike story. That is only a small portion of the whole documentary. I think it's like episode 5 or something like that. So yeah, SB, I haven't seen it. I'm sorry. I was dealing with other things during the pandemic.
SB's very angry tonight.
They're so angry.
Oh, here we don't have Nance here. Here, that's why he's saying that. What the hell, McCurdy? But he's still recommending Tetris. I'm down to add Tetris to the list.
Yeah. So Convery was fascinated by the Nike story. This is which is only a small portion. Apparently, it was like only episode 5, and they only briefly talk about how he got this Nike endorsement deal. But I'm losing my spot. But basically, he saw that, and he was like, "That's a story. Like, I want to tell that story."
Yeah.
And he went on to write the screenplay, where it became a part of the 2021 blacklist. Now, for those who don't know, in Hollywood, there's a back in the day, it was the blacklist, like you weren't allowed to work kind of blacklist. But nowadays, they have a blacklist of favorite unproduced screenplays. So, like, everyone loves these screenplays, they just have not been produced. It was on the 2021 blacklist, and Amazon eventually optioned it and picked it up. And then this is the crazy part. This is his first screenplay that he produced. Which I'm just like, wait, what? Like, this was his first movie,
but it's not like he just wrote
like it's his first.
then...
Not that his first one he wrote, but like the first one that he made that got produced, which is very fitting with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon being a part of this because, of course, like with their story and how they came into Hollywood, it like that kind of makes sense why they wanted to shepherd him into making this movie.
And they did that HBO series called, I think it was HBO, and it was called Project Greenlight, and it was all about finding a new talent and cultivating that. Did he? He didn't produce it though, right? He just wrote
No. He wrote it. Matt Damon and Affleck produced it. I think there were other producers listed. I probably didn't pick that up.
Yeah.
But but it's just more motivation for you and I to be like, we need to get our butts off our seats and just start pounding out some scripts.
Yeah. Just sit around watching sports documentaries until you find that guy who made clipboards, the clipboard story, because they got clipboards in every. Or like the whiteboard story. What was the invention of the whiteboard so you could draw the X's and the O's on it? That's a cow waiting to be milked.
Something. There's tons of stories out there.
Yeah. And then you can take this and stretch it into 2 hours, you can do anything.
Yeah. We got directed by Ben Affleck, of course. He also plays Phil Knight. Now, Phil Knight is the co-founder of Nike. He started the company selling running shoes, which a lot of this they talk about in the film. His whole idea was around selling low-cost Japanese shoes to the American market against like the German shoes, basically. That was Adidas at the time. And then Ben Affleck plays Knight. Affleck did meet with Michael Jordan before production to get his blessing with 2 stipulations, but I'll get to those when we get to them. But yeah, I think Ben Affleck, he's pretty good in this movie. I like how kind of dim-witted they make Phil Knight a little bit, like he's like a little full of himself, but it's kind of you kind of get that camaraderie with him and Sonny. That was something I kind of enjoyed about the movie. I don't know about you,
but
they
didn't go really heavy on the like they were subtle on the whole Buddhism thing where he he would kind of throw out a like Sonny at one point is like, oh, is this the preamble to some stupid Buddhist proverb that I don't know? And then he does, but versus remember Grandma's Boy, where the boss is he's very, everything is peace and love, and it was like way over the top with the Buddhist boss. This was subtle, and it was kind of.
They kind of make fun of him a little bit for it because of the time, it was in the 80s and everything else.
Continuing SB's anger, he says Batman v Superman isn't on there. He also said he's the best Batman. I agree that the best part of Batman v Superman was Ben Affleck. That movie sucks. Major asshole though. So hopefully we get to that one day. But
one day.
But he directed all these. No, I didn't. Sorry, I didn't see Good Will Hunting there. He wrote Good Will Hunting, but he directed those other three. And Argo in the Town.
Him and Damien. What I'm saying, him and Matt Damon won an Oscar for Good Will Hunting. So they both wrote the screenplay, and then those other three movies on there are all films that he has directed.
Exploded on the scene with Good Will Hunting.
And then there was one other thing. Oh yeah, Charlie. So one thing you were talking about is just the end of the movie not having this punch. I'm just gonna breeze over this. We can talk about it more, but I thought it was interesting. You were mentioning like the Buddhism thing. I thought it was kind of funny because going into the movie, you already know that like he signs with Nike. Like if you've walked into a shoe store, you know that Air Jordans are a Nike product. You already know that. So you know that by the end of the movie, he's going to. But there's a line in the movie where he says something along the lines of, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And I felt like they put that in there because they knew that people are going to go see this movie. They're like, well, of course Jordan signs with Nike. But I was more entertained with how that all played out in the film. And I felt like that was kind of commentary on that aspect of the movie.
Specifically, he's talking about the act of running. He's talking because he says, "Have you ever run?" And Matt Damon points at his gut, and he's like, "Of course I don't run." And he says, "Well, with running, looks
at himself."
The misunderstanding is that it's about getting to the finish line, but really it's the act itself that is the destination. As a runner, that's absolutely true. It's one. I used to hate running as much as the next guy, and people used to tell you, "Oh no, you just have to get to a point where it clicks, and then you love it." And it's like, how could you ever love running? And now I do, and it's not like if the whole time you're fixated on the ending, you're just suffering the whole time. But when it clicks, when you enjoy it, it is like this continuous moment of feeling alive, right? To kind of throw a cliche on it. And so he's completely correct. And that doesn't bug me. Like, I can watch Titanic. I watched Titanic the first time knowing that the boat's going to sink. Who cares? It's about how and everybody involved. So those things don't bother me because there are a lot of movies where you already know, even if it's a complete fiction, you kind of already know what's going to happen, but it's about how they do it. And so my main contention is SB said, he said, I just row. Yeah, SB, dude, I just rowed a couple hours ago while on the phone with McCurdy. I row and I run. You want to row sometime? Anyway, so back on track. So it's so that doesn't bug me. It's how you do it. And overall, my whole thing is like, this isn't a flat movie, but it is kind of like really, really milking every last drop out of the story to have some kind of drama. And I have some other movies I want to talk about that are related to it, but I'll continue to wait until you're through.
Let's do that. Then we've got Matt Damon. So I think we've told this story before on this channel, but back when Charlie and I and Nans were in high school, we all went to see 300. And I think we were all going separately. We went to go see 300 separately, I think. But maybe you and Nans went
Team
together.
America World Police to this day.
Yeah, this was post that. That was post that though.
Yes.
So we were all going to the theater. It's it's like March of 2007, I think, or 2006.
Yeah.
Go to the movie theater. This theater is packed. So it's kind of weird because it's like it's a movie in the middle of the year. It's packed. Everyone at school felt like was there. And then, of course, the trailer for the next Bourne movie comes up, and it's the Bourne Ultimatum, which was the third one. Trailer comes up. Trailer ends. Goes to the black screen.
Dead silence.
dead silence in the entire theater, and I hear Nans, like I'm sitting up top farther up, and then you and Nans are farther down in the middle section, and I hear Nans clear as day yell, Matt Damon. And the entire crowd of people in that theater were laughing their ass off. And it was just in the previews. Like, it was a great night at the movies. But
that
anyway,
became a tradition. It was every single time there was a Matt Damon trailer, somebody had to yell out Matt Damon afterwards.
Matt Damon. So Matt Damon plays Sonny. I'm going to screw a name up. It's the tradition right here. Vicario. Did they even say his name in the? They said his name in the movie. Is that how it was?
Yeah. They said
Vicario.
I think Vicario.
Vicario. Yeah. So he plays Sonny Vicario. Matt Damon's reunited with Ben Affleck, also producer. Yes, I know this isn't their first film they've had in a while, but it's nice to see them together again in a movie where people talk in rooms, like in Good Will Hunting, because I think they were in that movie. Was it The Duel, or what was it with it was the Ridley Scott movie that bombed, but it was like him and Ben Affleck and Adam Driver. And do you remember that movie? It was a night movie. It was about like they're fighting or something.
The Duel?
I think it was called The Duel.
Or like The Last Duel. I think it was like The Last Duel.
Something like that. Yeah. I think they were both in that movie together. But it's nice to see these two back together in a movie where they're pretty much playing off each other a lot of the movie, much of the movie. So Sonny Vaccaro founded the First Nation High School All-Star Game. The Dapper Dan Round Ball Classic, and was a pivotal role in the O'Bannon versus NCAA lawsuit, which allowed for players' compensation. Some of this they kind of talk about in the movie, but it's interesting to see that this person, he was very integral into Nike as well as in the sport of basketball at the time. Next up, we got Viola Davis, who plays Michael Jordan's mom, Dolores Jordan. And that was one of the other stipulations that Michael Jordan had when they were talking about making this movie. He said he wanted to have Viola Davis play his mom, and I think she's a great actress, and I think she does a wonderful job. It's a good pick for her. Moving on.
He's like, I want Viola Davis to play my mom, and I don't want anybody playing me. I don't even want to see my face.
Let me see here. And then we got Matthew Marr. I think that's how you say his name, or is it Mayer? Plays Peter Moore. He was the designer for the first Air Jordan and came up with the now infamous logo, which you see there in that same slide. He is like one of the weird standouts in this movie that you're like not expecting, because the movie plays pretty straight for most of it, and then all of a sudden he pops up and he's just this weird kind of creepy dude who's like really, really into making shoes.
He's a basement dweller. Like they show he hits the basement button on the elevator, goes down to see this guy, and he's like
he's the Q in this movie.
They give him he's Q,
he's
and they
Q
give
in this
him
movie.
Yes, and they give him I don't know if the real guy has a lisp or not, but they give him a lisp, like a comic book nerd lisp. And he's just this secret genius that they have who can he's like, I need the best shoe ever made in a day. And the guy's like, okay.
Form or function?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know. Just make a shoe. So he's in this movie. And I believe the only thing, this guy I haven't seen in a lot of things. I think he was in one of the, I think he was in Captain Marvel, was like the last big thing I remember him in. But other than that, he's kind of low key. That's not a pun, by the way. That was not a pun. Here's the rest of the cast. I kind of breeze right through them. You got Jason Bateman plays Rob Strausser. Chris Tucker plays Howard White. Chris Messina plays David Falk, and Marlon Wayans plays George Raveling.
Messina, how should I know him?
I don't know. I didn't look him. I didn't look.
Okay.
I like breeze.
He's the only one who I have no idea.
Yeah. But what's interesting is that was the other stipulation that Jordan had, was he wanted Howard White in this film, because I guess him and Jordan are close friends. Howard White is he's the vice president of Nike's Jordan brand line, basically. So, but he specifically wanted him in this movie, and originally he wasn't in the script. And I think as I think about it more, I think you could have pulled that character out of the script and it wouldn't really have changed the story that much. So it kind of makes sense that they kind of shoved him into the movie, but I don't think it like hurts the movie, nor does it like hinder the movie.
It's just a setup for the climax. That's all it's there for. It's set up.
But he also kind of like sets up things with the mom, and he's like, yeah, if you really want to get to the players, you got to get to the parents, kind of thing.
And at the end, they say, they're like, Michael Jordan said that if not for this guy, none of it would have happened. So it's like, maybe Michael Jordan had a huge list of, you got to have this in there. You got to, more than just Viola Davis. But do you know what a nocturnal is? SB.
Nocturnal?
What's a nocturnal? It says, who made the R logo for Ranked? Is this person also a nocturnal? A vampire? I don't know. I don't know what that means. But
like a basement dweller, a nighttime person.
I don't know. Anyway, we can ask her. I think she lives in India. But anyway, continue, sir.
Anyway, and I think that's it. Nans, what did you think of this movie?
Moment of silence for Nance.
Let's take everyone have a drink for Nance.
What do you think? Cheers. What do you think Nance would say? He'd probably say
either
it was okay. I bet he'd say
okay.
It was okay. I bet he'd be bored.
I was really into this movie, and I was surprised because I thought I would be looking at my watch a bunch because it is a dry movie as far as there's no major action scenes, there's no basketball scenes.
The first thing is like you watch the trailer and it's like, oh, it's a movie about a shoe, and so it's like for me it's the equivalent of when you're at a restaurant and there's an item on the menu that people, they read it and they go, what? Peanut butter on a burger? And you go, well, if it's on the menu, there must be some merit to it. It's not like they just slap together some gross ingredients and haven't even like tested it on anybody and then they just throw it on the menu. That doesn't happen. There's a reason for it, right? So this is a quality movie and it has merit. But it is stretching a story as much as they can stretch it. And if anybody out there ever has any trouble with any filmmakers or any storytellers in general taking artistic license and changing things to energize them a bit, I think you should show them this movie, because I could have used a little more ramping some things up or pulling some things down so far as like making the dramatic up and down. You know what I mean? Like so far as screenwriting goes, where it's like really make it like, that all is lost moment. The only all is lost moment that you have is that Michael Jordan and his mom want a piece of every shoe sold, and Sonny, Matt Damon's character, is like, that's not how this works. And so we're meant to feel like, oh no, the deal is lost. And then he goes to the CEO, Ben Affleck's character, and he's like, they want a piece of every shoe, and he just goes, fuck it. That's what he says, and then
I don't know if that's
good.
Completely I don't know
exactly
if that's completely it. Well, here's that does happen, and I know what you're saying, but like prior to that, there's kind of a like the movie does have like this lull, like they have this presentation, which is kind of a highlight moment in the movie.
That's the climax.
Where, like Matt Damon's like, we gotta, we're gonna basically sell him on this. And that's like and then he has this wonderful speech, which they set all that.
For context, what happens is the Marlon Wayans character is talking about how he saw Martin Luther King Jr. give the famous "I Have a Dream" speech, and the whole thing was that he's like, I heard the speech and it was so cool, so I asked for the notes, like the actual written speech. So, because I thought that it was so cool, such a cool speech.
He wanted to read it. He wanted to read the speech.
He wanted to read because there were all these amazing lines in there. And then he read it and he's like, none of it is in there. And so what he realized was that the first half of the speech was verbatim as written. And the second half of the speech was just made up, because once he saw that the people weren't connecting with the speech, he had to throw it out and just speak from the heart. And so later, during the pitch to MJ himself, they're doing all the expected stuff, and they're showing him a crappy commercial and then
like
a video
really,
thing.
like it's
and
just
then
a
he's like, turn it
highlight reel
off.
with music.
Let me just speak from the heart and MJ. And he just gives this cool speech. And that's supposed to be the dramatic climax of the movie. And, you know, it's cool. But that's the that is like supposed to be the big moment. And for me, one of the things that I do think, I see why they did it, but I do think it was a bad call to never ever show Michael Jordan. They show everybody in the movie, but they never show Michael Jordan's face. And I'm curious what their reason was. You can imagine that maybe it was like because he's too big or something. But like, end of the day, not having his reaction lends to this like deflated feeling, that like the emotionality being kind of drained from not having his reaction. And so in our big moment that was set up where Matt Damon's speaking from the heart and he's talking about greatness and everybody's going to forget about everybody else at the table, but you will be remembered forever. And this is before MJ is MJ. It's like when he's still a rookie. And it's like the only people who have seen this greatness is Sonny and MJ's mom. And that's why he does so well with the mom, because he's like, you see greatness in your son and I see that same greatness. And he's not just like another basketball player, blah, blah, blah. But by not having Michael Jackson's reaction, I was
Michael
like,
Jackson's reaction?
Did I say Jackson? Not having Michael
said
Jordan's
Jackson. Ow!
Yeah. Oh, that was the best speech ever.
I see what you're saying. I get what you're saying. As like any other movie, they would have cut to Michael Jordan's reaction, and we would have read that. But I do think because there's a lead up. This is what I was getting to, though. Is like after that, because everything's not really working. Like the audience. That's what I think is great about this movie. I do think Ben Affleck does a really great job of directing all of these actors, and they do give these. And it's not. He definitely directs this movie in a way that really, like, you can read exactly what is going on in the scene without having to hear what's going on. You can tell by Viola Davis and the Jordan's dad's reactions, at least, that like this isn't what they're saying is not really landing with.
And it was awkward. It felt
like it's awkward,
really awkward.
Like first they come in and Howard White is trying to be all friendly and kind of like speak to him in kind of their language, so to speak. Yeah. And it kind of works, but it's a little discomforting. And then of course Ben Affleck's
there's a not so subtle undertone of like send the black guy to talk to the black people. And he's like, Mama said I was going to be a preacher. Like it's
and she's like, she's not really buying it. She's like, seeing it as like a farce.
Yeah, and then because it's on the surface, they mention race several times, so it's not just it's not just an undertone. It's like direct. It's like
I'm saying, like, you're
and I like that. It made me feel like,
but you're watching that conversation and like it's not working. And then of course Ben Affleck comes in because Matt Damon tells him, "Oh, come in 7 minutes late because it will make us look good and everything." Yeah, and so he does that, but Matt Damon plays it off bad, and like, you get a sense that the CEO is kind of awkward to begin with, so he plays it off bad, and you're like, and
because then, there in the moment when he says when the CEO says, "I'm so busy, but this meant so much to me," and that was scripted. They wanted him to show up late because they wanted it to look like Nike is so busy. Even the CEO took time out. And they were like, show up 7 minutes late, precisely 7 minutes. It was
too on the nose. Like his script was too on the nose, basically.
But then right in that moment,
on the nose.
That's when Matt Damon's character says he's going to be fined by the NBA $5,000 every game because of wearing these
Matt
shoes.
Damon's like,
they're out of regulation, and then that's where Ben Affleck's like, what? Like that was news to him all of a sudden. Yeah. So it was like, and I agree with you. That scene was so clunky on purpose. Like it was so awkward on purpose. And that was good.
I'm agreeing. I didn't think it was bad. I'm just saying, like, all of those moments landed emotionally that you could pick that up on the screen without having to hear what was going on. You could cringe and you could feel it in the room. And then even Matt Damon, like, Jason Bateman comes out and he makes it way worse because he comes out with this really cheap, because he's like, I was a marketing guy. I got some tricks. And he comes up with this really cheap trick with like putting Michael Jordan on all these famous magazines at the time and showing it. And then at the end, it's like, oh, so how did that one get in there? And Sports Illustrated bikini model, and the dad laughs, but like
the
mom's not
like,
impressed.
really. Well,
And
it
you
starts
can kinda,
with
and you don't have to even see Jordan's face, that you kind of get a sense that like he's not into it. And then of course,
yeah.
finally we get to Matt
Because
Damon,
the
he
mom is
realizes
you're supposed to look to mom. Mom is
yeah,
more important than MJ
than
within
MJ at
this
this point.
film. Within this film,
Yeah. I think
yeah,
the reasoning, like if I had to put a reason on why they didn't cast Jordan, I think they wanted to skirt some issues where like they didn't want the movie to be about like who are they going to cast as Michael Jordan, because they did cast somebody as like a basically a stand-in because he has lines but you never see
yeah,
his face. And I think it was just because they wanted to focus this movie more about like him creating the shoe, the story around Jordan, not the story about Jordan. And I think
yeah,
that may be the reason why they went that way. I think to your point though, I think what you're describing is basically like in any other movie, we would have gotten a reaction shot of Jordan's face when he hears Matt Damon's words and he is like compelled. But I do think they save it. Here's the reason I think they save it. Because you say, oh, well, the all his lost moment is when she wants extra money. And I'm like, it's that, but it's more of like a stretch of time because by the time they leave, they're like, man, that was a great fucking speech. But as an audience member, you're like, did they sell it? Because even though I know that it took place, like, yeah, Jordan signed with Nike, and the rest is history. I knew
I mean,
that, but
it's
as
a
I'm watching
movie.
the movie,
It's a
it's a
movie. Even
movie,
if you
and
don't,
I'm
even if you were
so
born
yeah.
yesterday, you're still gonna
I was
know that
so invested
they're
at
gonna
that
win.
moment. I'm like, wait, is there more to the story that we don't know? Like, did this? So then the movie gives you this time where it's like you feel Sonny's whole like he feels like, oh, he's waiting for that phone call, and you can feel like he's lost. And I felt like as in my time on this earth, I've had moments like that where you're just waiting for a phone call or waiting to hear some good news or something. Did I get the job?
Yeah,
Did this thing happen or whatever? And you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting, and you don't get that call. Like, and then of course the first thing that happens is Howard White calls him and he's like, yeah, apparently Adidas is going to match and they're going to bring him this money and this. And he's like, oh, and he feels like he's lost. And you as the audience feel like you're lost and like,
yeah,
oh, I feel like we lost. And that I feel like it's from that moment till the moment of when she's like asking for more money. It's not just that scene. I think it's like the buildup to that feels like, did we win? Did we lose? And you're not quite sure. And I
yeah,
think that's all great. Like I know you were like, it was okay. I was invested in all of that. I was like, oh,
yeah,
but I do agree that like that moment of her being like, oh, we want a little bit more money, or he's gonna get money for every shoe that's sold. He's gonna get a portion of the gross profits of the shoes. And you're like, that part felt clunky in a bad way. Like it just felt like it felt like a stop in that because now it feels like we're starting a whole other thing. But
well,
then of course Ben Affleck's character's like, fuck it.
again, the subtitle is courting a legend, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like courting. I mean, it's like dating. It's like this constant negotiation. And there was the main. This is a classic example of a movie where the it's like what do we always talk about with Bond? With I'm always the bad guy, or I'm like I'm always looking at the bad guy because Bond is pretty constant, but the bad guy kind of determines a lot of my feelings and rankings because as always said, it's like a story is about the crisis. It is about the chaos, the conflict. A story is essentially order to chaos and back to order. And so you can judge a story on the quality of the chaos. And with this, it was like, and again, I'm not going to caveat this anymore because I keep saying it's a quality movie and it's well acted. But when it comes to the what are the stakes here? That's the tough part because it's a guy who is like right off the bat. I liked how they showed him. It opens with him at a high school tournament, and he's meeting and greeting, and he's giving out shoes. He's doing his thing, and then he flies back on the way back to Oregon. He always his habit is to stop off in Vegas, and he gambles. So right away, it's like this man is a gambler. but he's a good gambler. Kind of. He wins betting on sports, but then he loses at the craps table or whatever. But it's like he's a capable gambler, and that's his thing. And then and that is reflected in his idea of instead of, I guess, the thing that Nike would do, or I guess probably shoe companies in general, is they would have a budget for the amount of money that they could pay professional athletes in endorsements. So let's get, and that's split amongst 3 or 4 athletes. But his whole thing is we're going to let it all ride on one athlete. And it's going to be Michael Jordan, because he's the next big thing. And trust me, he's not just another rookie. He's going to be the biggest thing. And as we all know, MJ is the biggest basketball player ever. But overall, the stakes for this is reminiscent of everything we kind of talked about in something like The Living Daylights, where it's kind of like, what are the consequences for failure, right? Like, this is a man who doesn't have kids. Like, he would be fine. Nike would close down their basketball division. And like, that's all that like, I'm not going to poo-poo the movie just because of that, but it's one of those things where without the really dramatic highs and lows, that's where I go, there's a good movie, but I'm not walking out being like, dude, like something like Argo, right? Where even if Argo took artistic license here and there, which I don't know if it did, Argo just had those big moments, those big up downs of just like tension.
I think
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I agree. I see what you're saying. I think the difference though is like, of course, we're talking about like the setup of this whole thing. We're talking about a shoe company winning or losing, but I don't think that negates like the stakes of the movie, because that's one thing that I applaud this movie I'm doing, is really educates you in the exposition of the film about where Nike was at this point in time. Because when I think of Nike, I think of like a very successful brand that it's synonymous with basketball.
Yeah.
But this movie takes place in '84, and they really do a great job of setting up the stage where you're like, hold it.
The opening was fantastic.
But it's like, it's not just that opening where
the
it's
opening
just
is a montage of
80s.
1984. It's
it's a montage of like
overload
Ghostbusters and like all these commercials and everything else, right?
Yeah.
It's not that. It's the fact that like they set this stage up where I didn't know this, but like Converse is the top dog at this point in time. Of course, I remember, Converse nowadays is like the cool shoe to wear because it's kind of alternative to wearing like a Nike or a sneaker, right? Mm-hmm. But like at the time, Converse was the basketball shoe to wear. Like that was the thing you wore.
As I said, it was everywhere. Well, it's in all the rap videos, or maybe it was Adidas. Or whatever,
Adidas,
but not Nikes. Adidas, though. The point is,
but not Nikes. Nike's and they even say this. They're like, the percentage share of shoes in basketball was like significantly. It's like it was like 20% or like 17%, which is small.
Yeah.
And then they're like, Converse, most every single major basketball player at this point in time are wearing it. I didn't realize that. I didn't know that. So as an audience member who's just watching this movie, going to sit down, I'm like, wow, like they're really setting the stage as like why this was such a pivotal moment for Nike. So for me, I was like, that's how it's raising the stakes, is they're really showing like they have to go up against Converse, the biggest giant. They have to go up against Adidas, which at this time Run DMC was running the song My Adidas, and they were basically repping Adidas with they talk about the jogging suits and the shoes and everything like that. But they were repping all that stuff at the time. So they're talking about, Adidas was a huge deal at that time. So they're like this small company in comparison. And
but let me clarify,
as someone who lives today, I'm like, Nike's a big company. Like, are you kidding me?
But let me clarify.
The other part of it, hold on. The other part of it was they have those two. Those are the antagonists of this film. So they have to beat the two big guys. They have to beat these two guys to get Michael Jordan. That's the goal in this movie. They are the underdogs of the story. But the other part of it is, it's not just that. It's all Sonny is writing the whole, like, it's basically he's writing the whole basketball division, a huge chunk of their company that they are not succeeding in. And if he doesn't succeed in what he's doing, a lot of people are going to be out of jobs. And I know, like, you're like, well, that's not huge stakes. That's not life or death.
Well, no, that's why at one point he's looking around at everybody. And
he's
the
like,
point of those shots is like all these people are going to be destitute. And then they vocalize it when Jason Bateman's character is talking about, he's like, I'm divorced and I see my kid rarely, and you don't have kids. So, you're able to put everything on the line because you don't have kids, but the rest of us have. And my point is this. I register that. I also register, Nike wouldn't be a big thing today if not. And a side note, it's really funny that they even bring up, they're like, yeah, most of our shoes are made in sweatshops. And,
he's like, I don't even care.
Oops. There's just it's like they throw out all the dirt on Nike. They just kind of throw off in offhand comments. It's like, yeah, because it's like, oh, Nike. Yeah, well, it's mostly sweatshops making our stuff. And then also, little Taiwanese babies are making these shoes. And then also, we paid some chick $35 to make the Nike swoosh, and biggest shoe company ever, but like too. Fuck her. All these true stories that are the dirt, right? But my point isn't the history, right? Because you could watch a documentary on this, just like The Last Dance, and know all these things and appreciate them. But as a dramatized film, at the end of the day, everything that happens is just kind of like, well, that was easy. You know what I mean? That's what I mean by the bad guy. The bad guy in this movie is, the other shoe companies and also the Jordans, and trying to convince the Jordans. Yeah. And they're
as an antagonist, not a villain, but like as an antagonist.
Antagonist. I'm using those.
And Matt turns. I just want to clarify. So it's like they're not bad people. It's just they're the antagonists of the story.
Yeah, man. Michael Jordan's mom's an ass. No, it's like it reminds me of when I remember being at work years ago, and somebody brought up Dunkirk, and I've said several times, I do not like the movie Dunkirk. And somebody, I remember I was like, yeah, you got all these like obnoxious cowards on the beach, all like stabbing each other in the back to get home. And this woman I work with said, how dare you? You wouldn't be here if not for them. And I go, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm not talking about the historical event. I'm talking about the film. You're proving my point that people watch movies and then they equate that with reality. We're talking about how somebody tells that story. And frankly, whether it's true or not that the men on the shores of Dunkirk were assholes, that makes for a shitty story in my book. We need romance. We need romanticism in our movies to elevate them above reality. That's that's like my mind goes to Indian films, to Bollywood films, where they don't care about realism. They just care about entertainment. And there's a line there, right? Because not everything can be ridiculous. A movie like this shouldn't be ridiculous. But getting back on point, that's why I bring up if they were to take artistic license and even like, okay, movies that,
and I do wonder movies if they did. Made like me think I haven't seen what.
Yeah. I assume they didn't. I don't know if they did. I assume they didn't, because so far Ben Affleck has been, he's made a couple of these movies that are like, it's going to be like super accurate, and the production design is going to be on point, and I respect that. But at the end of the day, it leads to something of a flat line. Like wrapping up on Dunkirk, we've talked about it before. I took Dunkirk, a movie that I did not like, and I cut it with Darkest Hour, a movie that I really do like. Darkest Hour is people talking in rooms. Dunkirk is the action that they're talking about, right? So in Darkest Hour, it's like, oh God, we're going to lose the war. Dunkirk is the war. So I took those two movies and I edited them together so that you have the best of both worlds. You have the people talking in rooms, and then you see the consequences of the people talking in rooms to make what I think is a definitive movie on the subject, and more complete. And this movie didn't have that, where maybe it would be too obvious. Maybe it's secretly genius that they didn't have any basketball or whatever. But I was sitting there being like, people talking in rooms is fine if you have the super dramatic up downs, but without that, I would have welcomed there being a game or two with Jordan, or where you're literally, quote, courting a legend, where it's like convincing him to wear the shoes, and then maybe he wins some pivotal game with the shoes, like really giving a lot of credit to the shoes, right? Even if it's fake, it would elevate the movie to a level where I would walk out having the feely feels, versus a movie where I walk out going, that was good, and I feel well informed on how Nike became a powerhouse, but like, I'm going to go about my day now. And let me bring up some movies that, like, okay, Moneyball obviously came to mind. Another underdog story, right? That I think does it better because it, I haven't seen it in a while, but going off of memory, it has, it's got those interesting characters where you have the really pissy Brad Pitt character coupled with Jonah Hill's character, and how the whole thing is like really trying to change the game, right? And this had elements of that where it's like, it's like
there's no basketball or baseball element. There's no gameplay element to this movie.
Yes, but
that lends to
also
what's in this movie.
Yeah, but also with this movie, it's like that's unprecedented. A player has never gotten a cut of a shoe, and like I said, they have that phone call, and then there's no like. Now my mind's racing. Remember in Good Will Hunting, when Ben Affleck's character goes and talks, he does a job interview. Remember the retainer?
I haven't seen the movie in a while, so you'll have to.
So okay, so
I've seen it. I haven't seen it in a while.
So Matt Damon has all these job interviews lined up, and so Ben Affleck goes to one of them, and he bullshits his way through the whole thing, and he's telling these guys basically, he's like, you need to give me money, like retainer. So they basically give him the money out of his pocket, and then he goes home. Like he robs them essentially while pretending to be Matt Damon. It's a funny scene, but the whole time they're talking about the board. They're talking about how important the Nike board is, and that was something that would have satisfied me a little bit more. Would be he gets off the phone with MJ's wife. Gets off the phone with MJ's mom, who says, "We want a cut of each shoe." Now we have a new hump to get over, right? We have a problem. So he goes to the CEO, Ben Affleck's character, and says, they want a cut of the shoe. I know that's impossible. I'm sorry. I failed. And then it's up to Ben Affleck to go in and talk to the board and make it happen. But instead, he literally just says, fuck it. And I was like, oh, no. Oh, no. This was supposed to be like another hurdle, another dramatic hurdle in the story. And he just goes, fuck it. And then he goes back to the phone. He's like, we'll do it. And then everything works out. And that's kind of the thing that keeps happening in the movie is like, oh no, what if we don't win? And then they win. Oh no, what if we don't win? And then they win. It's like at the end of the day, it's like everything was a little too simple. The only adversary was other people in the business within Nike being like, what if we lose? That was it. There wasn't like an external force. There wasn't like Adidas wasn't pulling any stuff or Converse wasn't pulling any stuff. And maybe those things didn't happen in real life, but that would have lended to more of a dramatic up down in the movie versus, a series of scenes that are like, not all of us can gamble like you. And then he's like, no, trust me, it's going to work out. And then it does with hardly any resistance. And that's where I go, good movie, but I didn't walk out jacked up like something like Moneyball, where the whole story is literally changing the game. It's like it did change the way that baseball and all of sports was approached with computers and statistics and all that. So that's where it's like that movie has that more fun element where it really was a game changer. And then The Founder is a movie that for me is, have you seen it? The Founder is a movie I go back to semi regularly. I
think The Founder has more of a it's more of like you see a guy who's already a bad dude and he's like his rise to power, like the way they portray him. He's not necessarily a good guy, but you see the tenacity and how he like continuously rises and like he gets around people. Like you see all the ins and outs. I do think that movie is not a people talking in rooms movie though, which is very different from this movie. And I would say that because there's like way more. There's scenes specifically like the scene where the McDonald's brothers are demonstrating how they came up with the McDonald's process for the beginning of the movie, and they're like, this is how we did our process. We made a chalkboard, and like you actually see that setup, or like when he goes to the restaurants and he literally sees like, oh, the chains aren't making the food that we told them to make. They're making chicken, and we told them to make the burgers. And like, you see like that, But I see your point. Is like this movie. It's kind of a similar thing. It's a
an
movie that's about a
underdog
rise to
story
power,
about like
and it's a
a
rise to
guy who
power. Yeah,
the core story is one man who says, I see greatness. There is greatness in this thing, and I'm going to pursue it, and I'm never going to take no for an answer, and I'm going to make it work. And with the
So
founder, he
I
ends
think what
up
you're
being the
saying with
bad
this,
guy.
yeah, but
So
I think what you're saying with this though is there's more ups and down hurdles to the thing that he needs, because there's not like a specific, because like the thing with Air Jordan is like it's very specific. They need to sign Michael Jordan. That's their goal in the story. Every
yeah.
story has to have characters, goal, and a conflict. And in the founder, it's a little more vague because there's not quite a like it's not a specific goal. It's not like I need to have McDonald's. It's not that. It's more like I need to basically be a rich, successful person, which can be a lot of different
it is
things.
kind of he sees the first time he goes to a McDonald's, and there are these wonderful moments like he orders food and it comes right away, and he's all confused,
Yeah,
and he's like this isn't my food, I just ordered, and he's like, sir, it's yours. He's like, what do I do with it? He's like, you can eat it wherever you want. Like those are the fun moments. But then the development of McDonald's into as we know it today, right? Like that's the hook of that, coupled with
I
Ray
like
Kroc
this.
being a bastard, and
Yeah, I like
him at first being friendly with the McDonald's
yeah.
brothers, but then ultimately betraying them. But just seeing how it all develops from it's I mean, in a way, it's kind of like a classic Citizen Kane type of story, where at
It
first he
is.
does kind of mean well, but then over time he's
He
like,
gets greedy with power, and
but he's greedy because he's like, I did this. Like, you guys were holding me back, right? That's the whole thing. Is like the McDonald's brothers are these they came up with it, but he perfected it, and he turned it into a global thing. Whereas for them, they just wanted to be local. They just wanted to have their one restaurant in San Bernardino or whatever.
Yeah.
But so the story has
This is more that story's
is
more about
so much.
franchises, but there's more zigzag, like what
Yes.
Huevos is saying here. Says yes, good point. This was like more the actors keeping me hooked. The founder has a much better. You just said much. I think
Yeah,
you're
like
saying much
it
better
has
story,
growth. It has
and it
growth.
zigzags. And what I'm
Yeah.
saying to my point though is that like that's with Jordan, with that movie just being about signing Jordan, and this movie being more about like it's not specific as to what he needs to do to succeed, because that's really what his ultimate goal is. I need to succeed, I need to be rich, I need to be whatever, but there's
Yeah.
nothing specific about it. But because there's nothing specific about it, it keeps building. Like we keep seeing all of the hurdles that he's taking to become a franchise, to make these franchisees, to basically take the company from McDonald's, to like how they get around the milkshake situation. Like there's all these little different hurdles in the founder that he has to make. Where this movie, it's like there are hurdles, but the hurdles are a little more closer together because he's pressed for time. He has to get Jordan by a certain point of time. He's risking everything to do it. I don't think, and like I still think this is a really good movie.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, but I see your point as far as like the founder's a little more vivid and you can see a lot more going on. But it's a very similar movie as far as a rise to power, rise from nothing to excellence.
There's a reason why in The Last Dance it was like a little snippet. It was just like, we made this shoe, and I guess MJ liked it, and we gave him a sweet deal. It's like, was this, again, when you watch the trailer, you go, wow, it's a whole movie about a shoe? Huh. It must be important if they made a whole movie about it. But again, on watching it, I'm like, there's a reason why this maybe would have made an interesting documentary, which a documentary is just people talking in rooms, but it's not dramatized. And that coupled with the lack of Michael Jordan, and because even routing everything through his mom, it's like, yeah, Viola Davis did a good job, but it's like there was no pushback from her. There just wasn't any pushback from anybody to the point of making it this dramatized story of like, oh my God, are they going to succeed? It was like, and everything worked out fine. I kept thinking that. It's like, and everything worked out fine.
Okay, so I think I know what the fix would have been for this movie. So here's my pitch for a fix.
I love I love fixes.
You love your fixes. Make Michael Jordan, the end of this movie, he gets trained by Cranky Kong. And then
I thought you wrote me in thinking this was serious.
I have a real one. 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 I have a real one.
But I
no. I have a real one. I have a real one.
I adore the idea of
No.
Cranky Kong training Mario.
Hold on.
That would have been so good. God, that would have no.
I'm derailing. It was a joke.
Tell me though, real quick.
No, I really have a real legitimate.
Because I don't think you said.
What
are your thoughts on that? That would have been so good. Cranky Kong.
I like the idea
training Mario. That would have been amazing.
Okay. Or what if it was Donkey Kong and he got injured and that's why you can't do it? Regardless.
No, Donkey Kong was captured, so Cranky Kong has to train Mario to save the Mushroom Kingdom. That would have been
movie.
That would have been so good.
We're on a new movie. Okay,
Am I the only one who thinks that's an amazing idea?
You are. There's a legitimate fix, I think, that would have maybe solved your issue with the movie, right?
Okay.
Make Viola Davis telling them that, hey, we want residuals off this. That's the make that the
Martha. Sorry, go ahead.
You okay? You okay?
Yeah, but I think that's the halfway. Save Martha. Save Martha.
How much you
save Martha? Oh, I'm fine.
Okay. Make that the halfway point of the story, because it does feel
yes. Wait, which part? Which part? The signing him?
The signing him. Make that the halfway point.
I had the same thought. Yes.
Make that the halfway point. And not because I think there's probably more to the story that they could have gotten into with the issues with, like, it does, like, the movie does lend itself, like, yeah, it's already 2 hours, right? Like, it's a 2 hour, or it's an hour. I can't remember if it's 90 or 2 hours. It is a long movie to begin with. Like, it's 2 hours. Well, it's not long. It's like a decent size length, right?
It's 2 hours.
But like,
it's
2 hours. But you
to your
could
point,
have.
I would have loved that. They
you
sign him halfway through.
An hour.
They sign him halfway through. The second half is all about, like, everything that they crammed into the credits. Yeah. That would be the second half of the movie, where it's like where they're playing the games, right? He's in the NBA and he's playing the games, and they're bleeding money. It's like we're bleeding money and nobody's buying the shoes.
And there's more.
Why isn't anybody buying the shoes?
I guarantee you, there's more. There's probably more to the story about how, like, the shoes became a success, but, like, still focus on the shoes.
If he doesn't win this game, we're running out of money to keep paying for this stupid ass $5,000 a game.
Like, okay, Charlie. The part that, like, the one thing I thought was interesting, I didn't know, was that they were like, we have to make the shoe white because like that you're going to get fined by the NBA, right? Like that was a thing that they talked about in the movie. And then, Sonny's like, oh, we're going to pay for every time he does that, and we're going to create a commercial for it. And then, Phil Knight's like, yeah, okay. Make that the second part of the movie. Make all of the fights with the NBA the next part of the movie until the end of the movie. Like, add an hour to the movie, and I think, Charlie, you would have been more into the movie. It's kind of like how I felt about, like, this is the thing I hate more than anything, is now that Harry Potter started a trend. We were like, let's do movies in 2 parts, and I hate that, because really you're just taking a movie with 3 acts and then chopping it and then reorganizing the acts into another movie.
That's why
that second movie, that's what basically happened to Hobbit. Like, they cut a story that should have been one thing.
It was 2 scripts and they made 3 out of it. They had to make a whole third movie out of nothing.
But then, like, Harry Potter did it, and then all, like, the Twilight movies and Divergent and, like, Hunger Games tried to do it, basically. And I remember seeing Hunger Games the last one, Mockingjay Part 1 in theaters, and I remember seeing the end of that, and I was like, this sucks. Like, I hated the way it ended. I'm like, I get why they ended it there, so it would be a cliffhanger, but I was like, oh, this is not good.
Which movie?
And like Mockingjay Part 1.
Yeah.
Remember, there's supposed to be 3.
It cuts back to him in real life playing ball, showing his iconic moment. I think what he's talking about is show the moment where they took the photo of him doing the slam dunk that led to taking the silhouette and putting that on every Nike
There's
Air
so
shoe.
much more to that story.
But instead we're sitting waiting for the phone to ring, and it's like I agree with you that those are good dramatic moments for Sonny, but it's like there's more story here. Why are we just sitting around? There's more to be. There's more interesting stuff.
There's at least an hour more in this movie that they didn't do for whatever either. And I don't think it was scripted. I think this is what was scripted.
Yeah.
I think this guy. Of course, this is like news film. I mean, he's not new. Like he said he's written other scripts. This is just the first one he's sold, right?
Yeah.
So like but this is like the first one he sells, right? But like I'm kind of like with you, where I'm like, add an extra hour to this movie because it does lean itself into that like this is a biopic movie of sorts, right? It's sort of a biopic, right? So it's like you could have added an hour, and I think audiences still would have seen the movie, and I think it was still been a great movie. I still think this is a good movie, but I think
you
the
keep
greatness...
saying good, and you say you like it, and I agree. I like it, and it's good. I don't love it, and I don't think it's great, and that's the difference. I'm not like with list wise. Me walking out of Infinity Pool, I was buzzing. I was just like, my God, that was good. My God, like what it has to say about the human condition, human behavior, and how people would act in a world without consequence. And so I was buzzing with this again in my intro. I'm like, it's like when somebody tells you something interesting, you're like, that's interesting. I'm glad I know more about this shoe. What am I going to eat for lunch? Like I'm just immediately kind of over it. But what we're talking about is a movie that would have escalated, and it would have required, because I remember seeing the opening credits and I was like, ooh, I wonder who's going to play MJ. And I'm like,
everyone noticed. Everyone I know who was like asking that question.
Yeah, I'm like Marlon Wayans.
I showed that trailer.
I'm like, okay, it's not going to be Chris Tucker. He's too old. But like Marlon Wayans, he could maybe pull it off. I'm looking at the credits, and then quickly you catch on to they're never going to show his face. Yeah. And I was like, ugh. Okay,
I will say though,
so they better nail this movie without him though. But then it's like in the end without that, because again, the whole thing courting a legend. It's courting a legend. It's like, we're going to do everything it takes to get them on our side. And it all just goes so smoothly. Like there really aren't any hiccups. And I like there
are hiccups, but yeah, you don't really feel
what are they? What are the hiccups?
Like every time they're like, because the first big hiccup that he has is trying to get a meeting with Jordan. And he plays it. He's like, he talks to his agent. His agent's a complete asshole, which is one of my favorite scenes, by the way, because he starts off talking to him, and he's just like,
"I will eat your balls. I will nibble on your balls."
That one. Like that one's great. Fun. But before that one, we first talks to him and he starts telling him about some like very agent bullshit thing where he's just like, yeah, I've got this other guy. And Matt Damon's just like, yeah, I don't give a fuck about that. I'm here to get a meeting with Jordan.
I don't give a fuck.
I love that. I love that so much.
And that,
anyway,
again, but that's the acting.
That's the biggest, that's the first hurdle.
The performances are great. But so far as the actual dramatic up downs, it's like they won't take a meeting. So he goes, and it's obviously admirable. He goes to the Jordan's house, and he's like, hey, can I talk to you? And they're like, we normally wouldn't do this, but yeah. And it's just like everything just keeps working out without there being that, again, if the movie had continued, it's like Jordan's playing his first game, and there's some problem, and so we got to solve that problem, and all this stuff going on behind the scenes of like a game that's going on or whatever. Like there's none of that. So all in all, everything leads up to that moment where it's like that we already talked about, where it's like, we want more money. And then Ben Affleck says, fuck it, you can have the money. And then the big celebratory moment is that Matt Damon walks out into the bullpen of all the workers at Nike, and he just goes, guys, we signed him. And everybody's like, yay. And I'm like, I'm sitting there thinking about like endings of movies like a Ron Howard movie with everybody kind of like sitting around waiting for the big news and everybody's celebrating. And so he's like, that's Ron Howard's shtick, right? Is like something big is happening, some big event, and everybody's waiting to see if the astronauts make it okay, or if the boxer's going to win the fight or whatever. And then everybody celebrates, and it's always super joyous. But this was just like, we signed a guy for a shoe, and great. Bunch of random people that I work with. Yay. And I was like, I want to be cheering. I want to be like, yeah, with everybody, but I'm just kind of like, everything kind of just,
what it reminded
worked
me
out.
Of? You know what that scene reminded me of though?
What?
All the President's Men. Because like he comes out like Dustin Hoffman kind of comes out and he's just like, the camera's following him and he's like, we did it. We got him. We got him. But it's not like this big thing. It's like kind of contained. And like that's, I wouldn't say that like that changes the way you feel about it, but yeah. Anyway, let's get down to brass tack. I don't give a fuck about that, Charlie. I don't give a fuck about that. Where would you put this? I'm going to say that from now on. I don't give a fuck about that.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. I'm here to find out where we're ranking this.
I will.
And
I think McCurdy. I will nibble your balls like that.
I will eat your balls.
Watching him struggle to come up with horrible things to say. Like, of course that was fun. You know,
I love that part. See, that's the thing. I had a lot of great moments coming out of that movie that I was like, oh my god.
The movie's all about performances. It's all about performance.
So well, that's not just a performance though. Like that, like
Huevo says around 9 or 8.
Around 9 or 8. Yeah, I don't think it's that low on the list. Unfortunately, that's not where I would put it. But I mean, I could see you putting it super low. But I'm like, I think performances.
No, I'm not going low. Again, this is a real movie.
This is high. This is a real fucking movie.
Yeah, it's
you know where I put it?
Movie.
Okay, so here's what I'd put it. Knowing how you feel about this movie.
Hang on, SB. I love McCurdy. Doesn't remember Good Will Hunting, but brings up 1978, All the President's Men.
Well, just that's because funny. I probably saw that last, SB. Jesus Christ. I don't give a fuck, SB.
Dude, SB is just he's very angry tonight.
He's
don't
very
mess
angry.
With SB.
No, I don't think it's. Here's the thing.
He's saying 10. SB's assuming.
I don't think
based
it's
off what we've been saying, it's 10. No, it's not. I don't think it's. It's definitely not that low.
I think. Here's the thing. I think it breaks the Shazam threshold. I think that's where it lands.
Undoubtedly, it breaks the Shazam threshold because it's a real movie.
And again, the work, and I do think the plot, the story, the plot, the script. I think it all works. Charlie, the way you were framing what you have said to me tonight is basically like, it's good. It could have been great, but it's good. It's not, and it works. Like it's good and it works. Unlike, we talked about Mario, right? Like we all liked Mario a lot. Like we thought it was a lot of fun. But Mario on its like when you get into the nitty gritty and you really think about it as a movie, it doesn't work. Like the script doesn't work as well as it could.
Again, my recommendation was take kids. Go show your kids.
That's a great movie.
If you don't have kids, don't bother. If you don't have kids,
it's not a
don't bother. But
if you like Mario, you go see that movie. But that movie, if you're not a Mario fan and you lived under a rock and you went and saw that movie,
don't bother.
Like you're not going to get that movie. This movie, on the other hand, does a great job of setting up what the fuck Nike was at the time. So you really do get invested in the film world of this movie. It does a great job with all of its characters are top notch. And every character gets a little bit of a moment where you really appreciate that character, whether it's Jason Bateman's little monologue about him and his daughter, or the weird, Peter Moore's character, the weird dude who creates the shoes, or even like Viola Davis's performance is great. Matt Damon's great throughout the whole damn movie. Ben Affleck's funny because he's just kind of this absent-minded, in a way, he's slightly absent-minded CEO, but he's like
literally says fuck it.
Yeah, he's like fuck it, but like Matt Damon can like his Sonny can appeal to his business side of like where's your balls, you were doing all this great stuff when you guys started, so like all of that is so fucking good. I think what you're describing though is like it could have been better, and there's a lot of room where that story lands that could have been better. Could have been great. It's good. It could have been great. I think
it's like it's literally a made-for-TV movie in its present state. It's not a big theatrical movie. It's a made-for-TV movie that would have been a really good made-for-TV movie.
I think
needed more.
Okay, so here's where I'm torn though, Charlie. Here's where I'm torn, and you'll probably say the opposite of what I'm going to say. Is it maybe not opposite, but you'll get where I'm going. Is it below or above Creed 3? Because I don't think like that's the one where I'm like it's close to it, but I think Creed 3 at least is a much more cinematic movie, but I do think Creed 3 has its shortcomings as well. Both very well acted movies, both really good stories. Creed 3 does have like a really good villain arc, but I feel like the villain arc could have been better and it would have been great.
That's a lot of what we talked about. Yeah.
That's kind of where, like the last time we talked about how Super Mario Brothers does feel like in the wheelhouse of where it landed. Like that's kind of where we've been really ranking these, is just like, where does it fit closest to? That's why I felt like Dungeons and Dragons and Shazam are very close in style and feel.
Yeah.
Megan and Missing have been that way. Scream, we did talk about Scream and
Scream, Mario, Ant-Man.
They're
Magic
all kind
Mike,
of in a same niche, but I do think this breaks the threshold where it's so fucking well done that you got to give it to, like, it's better than Shazam, I think, for a movie that is entertaining.
Undoubtedly above Shazam. So I'm glad you say all that, because for me, I already said Infinity Pool just impresses, and I someday, the reason why before I was going to bring up the 1993-94 Oscars, which was the year that had Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, and Shawshank, 3 of the best movies ever made. And it ultimately went to Forrest Gump. Why did it go to Forrest Gump? Well, because in a tie break like that, the Oscars, back when they meant something, would go to Americana. And
they still do.
So they still do. But
do this.
Sure. But Pulp Fiction, well, no, they all go to China now. They all go to China.
What? No, I'm saying is what you're describing is there's a tie. There's usually, if there's a bunch of really good movies, there's always a tie break, and it's always like the slightly mediocre movie that gets the best picture. When it's like there are 2 other movies that were like, those movies were better, but because everyone was pulling this one, everyone was pulling this way, the one that was sort of like in the middle still maintained
between
the
these 2
votes it got.
Between Infinity Pool and Air, it would go to Air, because Air is, as they say in the movie, they're like, this is the American story. It's like somebody coming from nothing, right? And not taking no for an answer, and yay capitalism, as Austin Powers would say. So like Forrest Gump is Americana versus Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction's so good, or Shawshank's so good. Yes, those movies are fantastic, but it went to the feel-good movie. So I kind of thought that might happen going into this, that it was like, if it was going to be between Infinity Pool and Air, that I would lean towards Air, because Air is the feel-good movie. But upon watching it, it immediately sunk below Infinity Pool for me and John Wick, just because John Wick is just, it's like masterful. Air and John Wick couldn't be more different, but John Wick is masterful so far as the finale of an incredible action series, right?
Yeah.
And those movies are less about story, and they're, as Kevra he was like, it's not about story, and I'm like, yeah, it's not. But John Wick 4 fucking knew what it was.
I think you could make the case, though, with John Wick 4, there is a story. There is like this, like, we're coming to a close. But I would also argue this. The difference between Air and John Wick is, like, Air's predictable because you know what's going to happen by the end of the movie. It's just how that happens. John Wick, on the other hand, you have no idea how it's going to happen, and you don't know how it's going to end.
Yeah.
For both those movies. So with that movie, it's like, I can see why, just how our list is, like, I think John Wick beats Air. My question even
beyond that, though, it's just like John Wick is just like, it's like masterful so far as action movies are. It's an incredible finale of 4 incredible movies. So
my question really
there's
is,
no
it's
question
like Creed 3 and Air.
It's exactly. At. So ultimately, what I'm getting at is it is between Creed 3 and Air. Now you have 2 movies where you have one that, like, can you imagine Creed if we never got in the ring? And it was just all about, like, his boxing gloves or something. It's just like, these are awesome boxing gloves. Like, that would be the equivalent. You could make a whole movie about that, as we saw with Air. But not having any basketball was a clear choice, but it just leads to something that's less big. And so I'm torn too, because Creed 3, the shortcomings that we talked about were, I said, in my view, the most interesting bad guy of the entire Rocky Creed series. It's not just a guy who's like, I'm gonna beat you up. It's this guy's got a full backstory. He's got his own revenge tale. The fact that it's like, I'm gonna come after you, Creed, because you stole my life. That's all fantastic. What we talked about in that episode was that they didn't blow it up enough. There wasn't enough. There wasn't enough of a I hate this guy. Like they didn't blow up that bad guy
There's
to
like that
epic
gap between the
proportions.
midpoint and the end of the gap between the midpoint and the act 3. There should have been more of a ramping up of how
More
bad he
shit
is
talking and just
how he
more like
could
I'm
have,
coming for your family,
or
just
like
more of
how he
that.
screws him over. But instead, screw that. We're going to talk about how his mom dies, and it's like villain. Like you should have talked more about the villain
or the daughter. It's like we got to set up the daughter because she's going to take over the whole franchise.
There's more like they spent so much time with the B stories in that movie. I think it lessened. Here's the thing. I think Air is a much better directed movie than Creed 3. And it's obvious because like Michael B. Jordan, this is his first movie he's ever directed versus Ben Affleck has directed several films under his belt, as well as winning, best screenplays and being in way more movies than Michael B. Jordan has in his whole career. That's where I'm like, I think that's where I would give Air the little bit, because just that scene we were talking about where he's pitching this whole thing, that is such a great, well-directed. That's great. That's such a great,
a lot of subtlety.
It's so subtle
in that
scene, but there's no subtlety. I think Creed 3 doesn't Jordan is making certain choices, but I don't think they land as heavy as they could have. And that's how I felt with the final fight. Was the final fight was okay. It was good, but it was
I go back to the final fight and I think about how it ended so abruptly. And I remember going, wait, what?
Yeah.
We're already done? Wait, no. Wait, no. I remember being like, oh God. And there was a classic montage. Like that the Rocky movies are well known for their amazing montages, the training montages where it's like you've set up the stakes and now it's all about running through the desert and sweating and everybody being like, yeah, he's ready. But I do agree that because between those two, they're very, you've got one movie that is incredibly subtle about a bunch of fat guys talking in rooms versus a movie about, the tough part is frankly, the character of, Dame, was that his name?
So here's Dame. Here's my thing with that.
So
Dame's really good. Dame's really good, right? Dame's really good.
Yeah.
But I think he's trumped by having Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Jason Bateman, the shoe guy, Viola Davis. You have such a heavy hitter cast. Yeah. It's just forget about
and everybody's bringing it.
Everybody's bringing it. Everybody's bringing it.
But I don't mean the performance. I mean the character of Dame being really interesting.
I see where you're saying that.
But he wasn't fully realized, and that's the trouble.
But if I'm just talking about performance, Dame's Jonathan Majors, again, guy's gonna win an Oscar. I guarantee it. At some point in time, hopefully this whole thing, this fiasco that he's dealing with, gets fixed or whatever.
She lied. She lied. I don't know anything about it, but I know she lied.
I don't know all the details. I don't know all the details either. But I'm saying but I think he's going to win an Oscar at some point in time. He's a fantastic actor. I just think when you have a power, but when you have a powerhouse of these 4 or 5 actors that are in this movie that just hit you in the face, and they're like, God, they're all so good. And they're bringing it. Everybody's bringing it. Even Chris Tucker's bringing it. And you see a side, and that was the other thing. You see a side of Chris Tucker that I feel like he has been the Chris Tucker you and I probably remember the most is Rush Hour or The Fifth Element, when he's just so over the top. This is such a much subtler Chris Tucker, and it kind of shows you
that much subtler, but yes.
He at least can play down to a real world person, and you're not this is a cartoon.
And even bringing in Marlon Wayans to just do a serious role where he does a great job. He worked for one day. They had him sit at a bar for one scene, and then he had
that scene also has you. Here's the thing: all the talking scenes are so captivating because I'm just I'm this the whole time. Where I don't necessarily think that's the case with Creed 3 as much, but I do think Creed 3 on the other side of that, it's you have the more traditional, just the reveals and action beats and things like that kind of fill those gaps in, so you don't have it's not talking in rooms kind of things. But again, it's just I think Air beats Creed 3. That's where I think the more we're talking about it, more I think that's where it's at.
That's where I'm leaning. It's Creed. Again, if it was Creed 1, Creed 1 would be at the top of the list.
Yeah.
No doubt. And this movie, the flaw really is, in a sentence, the flaw for Air is, I wish you would have taken more creative license to really blow this thing out of proportion, because there are some times where I think that's the wrong thing to do. I made a video at one point that I never put out, but I think I'll remake at some point, about how the movie Straight Outta Compton took artistic license with things, but I think it did some bullshit. I think it did some social damaging bullshit with the lies that it told. But then there are other movies where it's like, okay, this didn't happen, but it was better for the movie. And I'm like, yeah, do that. Make things up. That if it makes it, like, okay, if you're ever just at a party telling a story and you choose to tell the truth, and I'm all about the truth, but when it comes to storytelling, if you choose to tell the truth versus telling the better story that isn't true, you're an asshole. Don't ever let the truth ruin a good story. And so with something like Air, I do wish they would have taken it a little further to where I get the feels. But overall, it's quality. It's a quality movie. Apparently, I talked so much shit about it that y'all thought I was going to put it down by Super Mario, but no,
I was like, no,
quality.
It's
not
no
that way.
Bad. No, sometimes you'll go so hard on a movie.
I think
I think sometimes you go so hard on a movie where I'm like, did you hate the movie? Like that,
that's
like when we were talking about, D&D or whatever, like you just too much. But then, like we come back down to reality.
That's why we're here, McCurdy. We're here.
It's like every single Bond episode, we gotta, like, look, I'm going to pick this apart, and then I get the you just hate Goldfinger, and I'm like, shut up. Goldfinger's awesome. So
how did I do this time, Chuck?
So Michael Jordan is slam dunking my head.
Yeah, because I could have done but it's like I could have put Shia over that, but then I was like, no, they should be like together. But then I was like, okay, that's the other one's the classic photo. So I was like, he's dunking the Baskin Robbins. Eventually we will break the Baskin Robbins curse, but right now it's still Baskin Robbins.
It's still Baskin Robbins until I
should bring back pancakes.
Else. Yeah.
Well, at one point we had Wolf Blitzer, and I don't know what the other one was for Shazam, but yeah, we had that.
But with his tongue always hanging out, he could be licking an ice cream cone like a Baskin Robbins.
Oh, I should have done that. Damn.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't think about that one.
Sorry, buddy.
Good. Damn.
Apparently, you don't consult me before making insulting images about me.
It's not even like
I'm not insulted though, because I love Shia LaBeouf so much.
Like I want another. I can't wait to see another Shia movie, so then we can talk about. Actually, you know what, Charlie? But you have another doppelganger. You have a second one. Actually, you have three.
Leif Schreiber. I got Leif Schreiber.
No, not Leif Schreiber. You have three doppelgangers.
I think I've said before on an episode. I went in Chicago at work, like clockwork. Every meeting I was in, somebody would be like,
Schreiber?
Yeah, every time.
Okay,
I had shorter hair. They'd be like, "You look like Leif Schreiber," and I reached a point where I would go, "Hey, he's my dad." Really? I go, "Yeah, he's my dad." I don't tell people that, but he's my dad. I just started owning it because I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, he's my dad. Okay, so I think you have now you have four in my mind, but one.
Okay.
And I think it's just the beard, right? It's the beard. The first one, Shia, right? Shia.
Okay.
The second one, Jake Gyllenhaal.
No.
Jake Gyllenhaal to me, yes.
No.
Jake Gyllenhaal. There's times when I see him with the beard, when he's got the full beard, Jake Gyllenhaal. Other one, I think this one's a classic for me, is, he's changed a little bit. His face isn't the same. Zac Efron. Zac Efron's the other one.
Dude,
you look like a lot.
Suddenly
Zac Efron.
Suddenly you're complimenting me. Those men are too attractive. You compliment
They are,
me, so.
But I do feel like you look facially like Zac Efron and Jake Gyllenhaal and Shia LaBeouf.
Well, I appreciate
apparently Leif Schreiber. You are an amalgam of them.
Leif Schreiber is I think he's like perfect because he's not like those other guys are gorgeous. Whereas Liev Schreiber is just like classy. I like Liev Schreiber. He's
SB,
cool.
Casino episode we had to debate because if we didn't debate, it wouldn't be a good episode. So sometimes you have to.
My favorite
find
part
things
about
to
the Casino
complain about
episode was I was like, McCurdy's the villain. You were the villain of that episode. It was fantastic.
Because I truly do believe that. I think that a lot, like, that's the thing. I truly think that Casino is overrated in the sense that, like, people really glorify that movie so much that they tend to forget, like, every other prior Bond movie. And they're like, this is the best Bond movie. I'm like, yeah, but, like, why did we like James Bond in the first place? Like, remember these other movies? Remember GoldenEye? You know, like, that's where I'm like, it's good. Don't get me wrong. It's good. But I also feel like there is flaws in that it is a complete setup movie and there's pieces missing, but it like does like, again, like what did I say that episode? I said, it's really good vodka, but not a great martini. Right. Or something
that was such I sent McCurdy a Marco Polo. I was like, as I was editing that, I was like, dude, thank you so much. That was the perfect way of putting it.
Mance
that it's
was
your
so
exact
mad.
line was I feel like this is the best vodka that money can buy, but it's not the full vodka martini shaken not stirred. And I was like, god damn, that is so perfect. So
yes, Nico. Okay, so real quick, want to thank SB and Huevos and Nico and wait, who else was here?
Nico just showed up. What's up, Nico?
Was that it? I thank you guys for showing up on a random Tuesday.
Yeah,
you know,
and I'm down for this anytime. Like seriously, like I don't care about sticking to Sundays. The reason why we do Sundays is because McCurdy is on set regularly. But like McCurdy, anytime, literally any day that you can do this, I want to do it.
I just so happened.
I don't want to just keep
the
the 50.
Thing.
I want to do as many movies in the year as possible.
Yeah,
and
like I've told
keeps
Charlie
pushing for Tetris, and I'm down to do Tetris.
I've been telling Charlie like I want to do Barbie and Oppenheimer, and I know he's like Barbie's not my movie, and I'm like I don't care. Like
no, I still want to do it. Of course, I still want to do it.
We're still gonna do this week. I think this week is Renfield, so we're still doing that with Nick Cage as Dracula. Charlie's not really digging it. It might be competing with Cocaine Bear for all we know. We don't know until we see the movie.
Yeah.
I will say because I have a cool job and I'm just bragging about my job, right? I did talk to somebody who worked on the movie. He was a stunt guy and he's like, I'm in this thing and this thing on Renfield. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I don't know if I'll get a lot of info out of the movie, but
Huevos wants to know what you do.
I am a production assistant, which is like the lowest of the, like if I wish I had that picture of Jamie Kennedy from Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. Like that's my job.
You pissed in my coffee.
Motherfucker went to film school.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I'm production assistant, but I'm still working my way to becoming an assistant director. But I love my job. I get to be on set every day, get to see cool stuff. Sometimes I get to see cool stunts, get to talk to directors and writers and all the people's movies. It's cool. And actors, of course. So
Huevos also says you should make a movie.
We are going to make a movie, actually. That's Charlie and I wrote a script that Charlie and I have been going back and forth with Charlie's been giving me notes on the script, and of course, and I think Charlie's hopefully going to edit it if I send it to him.
He likes your shorts too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, I wrote a script. I'm planning on wanting to actually make it into a movie. Hopefully we might start or something like that. I'm going to make a feature. It'll be my first feature film. So I've written a script. It's not super long. It's not like meant to be in a 2-hour movie. It's meant to be more like a 90 to 75 minute movie. So a short feature movie, but we'll see. So yeah.
Also, Patrick, we don't know. Patrick, are you a first timer? But he says we're great. Thanks, Patrick. Speaking of which, we need to quickly do this. So we're set on 3, right?
Yes, we are set on 3.
Okay. Plugging it in. Number 3 is And then, as usual, I have to replace all these. So keep talking about what you're talking about, McCurdy, because I have to replace.
I don't know. Yeah, so I'm working on a movie. It's about what is McCurdy? What else was people asking? I don't know if they were asking anything else.
Well, I think
so I'm working on a movie, and I'm
my
writing
only
it right
request
now.
was that I be the store clerk, even though
There's
no
no
store clerk.
store in the movie.
I don't care. Write a scene in where I'm a store
I want a
clerk.
scene where I'm a store clerk.
Or
There's
gigolo.
like one
I would
scene
be
in
the
movie.
gigolo. Write a scene where I'm a gigolo.
I need to see I need to make sure that you're better than Halle Berry. Let's say that.
I'm Liev Schreiber. Liev Schreiber shows up in the script. And I play my dad. I play my father.
Yeah. So wait, Nico says, so is this up Affleck's usual standard Argo, The Town? It's been a while since I've seen those movies again, but I think
The
Nico,
Town
to answer
is awesome. Like this. Okay, ranking
Nico,
this,
to answer your question though,
ranking this with Ben Affleck movies. I didn't see The Last Night or the Live by Night. I didn't see the Live by Night. But Argo is good. The Town is the shit, and The Town so far is still his best movie. Didn't see Live by Night. I would put this below, for everything that I said tonight, I would put this at the bottom of Ben Affleck's movies just because it's underwhelming, but it's still quality. Ben Affleck still makes quality movies, but this one just lacked punch. And it would have had that punch if it would have had some Michael Jackson, like put Michael Jackson in the shoes and have him play a basketball game.
You did it again. Michael Jackson.
Ow! Do I keep saying Jackson?
I don't even.
It's not even registering in my brain.
Michael Jackson in the shoes.
Ow! Yeah, and have him moonwalk. I'm not talking, dude. I'm not talking about Michael Jordan. Fuck Michael Jordan. Michael Jackson should be wearing these shoes, and he should be moonwalking in them. Okay,
Charlie,
that's
I got
all
another
that
pitch. I have another pitch. Okay, here's my pitch for a new movie. Just a new idea.
Okay,
just run with me, right? So let's do a movie about a historic event about a person who did succeed, kind of like this movie, like Found or the founder of this movie. Do that, but switch the character with some other historical person, and then just see how that would ride out. So like this movie,
see if anybody noticed.
Instead of Michael Jordan, it's Michael Jackson. Then people will be like so confused, be like, "Wait, I thought Michael Jordan signed with Nike." Yeah, and the whole movie is like, Michael
That's why
Jackson,
they don't show his face, because they're like,
he's the best pop star
in the world. He's ghoulish weirdo. We can't show his face because he'd freak
out the kids. That would change the whole movie. Because everyone would be like, wait, you want to ride our entire budget on a pop superstar sensation?
That's so much better. Yeah. Are you insane? This is the basketball department. It's like no, Michael Jackson he's making a comeback. He's gonna be huge.
He's gonna be a basketball star.
Like, fuck, he raped Macaulay Culkin. What do we do now? We gotta kill Macaulay Culkin and bury him.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine if Sonny had to kill? It's like, we gotta go find Macaulay Culkin and murder him before he can testify in court. Yeah. All right, to get away from that, let's read.
Wow.
Let's read the list real quick. So, Infinity Pool, John Wick 4, Air, Creed 3, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, Megan Missing, Scream 6, Mario Movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Magic Mike's Last Dance, Knock at the Cabin, Plain Cocaine Bear. We're at 15 right now. I seriously cannot wait for this list to be 100 long. I will seriously do as many as possible out of 2023. I don't care. McCurdy, it's on you. Everybody watching should pressure McCurdy to do more episodes, because
we're going to have an issue come up.
I would do this every night. I would do it every night.
Because I've already talked to Charlie about this. We have an issue already. Because I think, Nico, you were the one who mentioned, like, oh, wait until you see Beau is Afraid. I was like, that comes out the same week as Evil Dead Rises. So we're going to have to flip a coin and see what we see. I want to see both those movies. But like, we're going to have to figure that one out. So like, hopefully we figure it out after next week or whatever. So this was just kind of like, we had to see it. Like, we saw the kids movie that everybody was going to go see anyway. And I wanted to see it. And then we went and saw this really great movie.
SB, we're doing it's both. So far we have yet to do streaming, but we don't care. Like this is an Amazon movie. So when is this going to be on Amazon?
I don't know. I think Amazon is doing the streaming thing correctly though, because like this is the issue that Netflix is facing, specifically Netflix, and I think all of them are facing, because they are like, oh, we'll just put our movies on streaming. Even Warner Brothers or Paramount or whatever was like, let's just put our streaming movies on streaming, and they're not realizing like you can't just do that without marketing the movies.
Yeah.
And like they should be putting these movies into theaters and letting them ride and then putting them on their streaming services, because then now it's like, oh yeah, I did hear about that movie. I do want to see that. And then like actually watch that on their streamer. So like they're actually getting revenue from when it's out in theaters, and then they're getting revenue again when people are like, oh, I wanted to see that. Oh, it's on Apple Plus. Okay, I'll go watch it on whatever streaming service is on. Like that's how you get people to make money and how the streaming thing should be. But people aren't like clicking with that. Yes, SB keeps talking about Tetris. I don't have I
got it.
I keep clicking and you click on it. Yeah, I want to see Tetris. Again, we're both Nintendo fans. Like I am upset we never got our photo from the Nintendo Club on that last episode we did.
Save it for Tetris, yeah.
We should, yeah. But Charlie and I and Dan's, when we were in high school, we helped found the Nintendo Club. I think we called it the video. Was it the video game club?
It was Nintendo Club for 1 year, and then we expanded into video game club.
Video games.
Yeah.
So we had a club. So we had video game, but it wasn't, because everyone just played Super Smash. Like that was the only game anybody ever played at that club. But yeah, we had a club, and I remember we got our little picture in the yearbook as a group, and we all sat there, and there was like every single nerd that had some social life like sat there, and we had our little picture, and but that club, like it was after school on I think 1 day a week, and we'd play Super Smash Brothers and like played video games for an hour or whatever. But yeah, like, so we were really into video games. So I'm really well aware, like Tetris has like, there's this whole story behind who got the rights, because that was an issue with Atari and Nintendo back in the I think it was like late 70s, early 80s, which is, when this movie comes out, like movie takes place or whatever. But yeah,
I'm down to do it. I'm down.
Yeah. The question is, are we going to the same cinemas? No, because they live in Indiana. I live in Arkansas. I don't live in Arkansas, but I live in Georgia.
McCurdy used to live here, and then he packed up the fam one day and moved down to Georgia.
Moved to Bollywood. What is it? Hollywood of the South.
Yeah.
Yollywood is as they call it. So I moved to Yollywood. So no, but I go to AMC like Nans does. And then Charlie loves to go to his Regal, but it's the Regal that I grew up going to.
Yeah, we all grew up going to it. That's why I go to it, because it gives me feels.
And I used to work. I worked there for like a summer.
Yeah, it's a piece of shit, but I love it.
It is a piece of shit.
Yeah,
it's a piece of shit now. But yeah,
love it.
Yeah. So we don't go to the same theaters, but I tend to like to go to now, because I've been doing the A-listers thing. I tend to like going to like the Dolby cinemas and the higher end stuff when it's great. This one I didn't have to, because it was like, it's people talking in rooms. You don't need the high fidelity rumble sound for this movie. So but if we get a big movie, I'll be like, I want to see it in Dolby.
Yeah. So anyway, we got it ranked. We're still gonna do Renfield. I mean, McCurdy, if you end up catching Tetris, let me know. I mean, I would Nans do Tetris. Sure.
Maybe you guys do Tetris, because I don't know if I really want to get Apple Plus, to be honest, but
sure.
That's just me.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of where we're at. I mean, I will be the through line. I will be in every episode. Ideally we would all catch every movie, but what are you gonna do? What are you going to do? We all have stuff we got to take care of. So,
but everybody here should go and watch the next movie next week. So then come back on Sunday, and you can tell us what you thought was shit or what you thought was amazing. And then we can discuss it. Yeah. And then we're doing our due diligence as cinema goers. I sound drunk. Do I sound drunk? We're going to see the movie.
Leave that to me. Leave that to me. Which, by the way, I've been going through the Live and Let Die episode. I went through that all today, and I was like, God damn, that I did not have dinner before the Live and Let Die episode for sure.
Because that's the one where you like we bested you, and you were like, no, the guy lives, and we're like, Charlie, he doesn't live.
Yeah,
like, no,
I
he
wasn't
lives, and I'm like,
that was one of the
and I
first
like
things
go
we
through
talked
it, I'm
about,
like,
but
that guy died. Like it's
it's
cleverly
hilarious
subtle.
watching that whole thing back because from the get go, I'm talking to myself. I'm like, dude, shut up. You're so wrong. It's funny to watch it back. But anyway, my thought on tonight's toast was my mind went right to Mr. Q, basement dweller shoemaker, because he was just such a left field choice for our guy. But who did you line up? Who were you thinking?
So like that's the thing. I went because this was a autobiography with real people. I went with the real Sonny.
Okay, which I'm down for
as the guy, because I
we wouldn't be here without him.
No, you wouldn't, because I think like you look at this story, and I don't know if it's true, because I don't know how accurate the story is, but the way that the story unfolds, it really kind of shines a light as this guy was just like this. He is the mastermind and the gambler of this risky venture for Nike that paid off in I've got a Nike shirt on, and like it's like one of the biggest sports athletic wear, whatever you want to call it, companies in the world, and I feel like if it wasn't for this deal, like they wouldn't be what they are today. Considering they also bought Converse like later in '96, I think is what they said in the movie or whatever.
Yeah, the fact that they bought that was a badass moment. It was just like, we ended up buying out our major competitor,
which we should have seen in part 2 of this movie, like the last hour or whatever. But of course, whatever. But yeah, I would give the toast to this, because it's like without this guy and his story, you don't have this movie. And it's still a quality movie. So like that's who I landed on. But you know what? Fuck it. It's our show. Fuck it.
Well, no, here you
like
go.
Ben Affleck said.
There you go.
Like
there you go. For Sonny.
Well, hold on. But as Ben Affleck said it, you can toast to both. We can toast to both. Fuck it.
Just Sonny and Matt Damon.
Not Matt Damon.
Or Sonny and Matthew.
You can toast him to Matthew Mirror, because he has that weird standout performance that you're just like, I like this guy because he's weird and creepy.
He was so weird. Okay, here you go. Sonny and Matthew.
Here we go.
Matthew Damon. Here you go. For Sonny and Matthew.
Here you go.
Just keep switching back and forth real quick between them.
I can't do it.
Yeah, he was just like, there's no better way to put it than he's the Q of this movie. He just Matthew's character as the guy who invented the shoe.
I think it's Peter Moore.
Like there wasn't any struggle there in making the shoe. It was just like, hey, I need the best shoe ever made, and he's like, okay, I got it, And those were the fun parts, but there wasn't. That's something where even with that, I'm like, it would have been cool more there, like him seeing his story of him like really, struggling to make that prototype, because he's just like, okay, I'll come up with the shoe, and then they come up with a prototype that they hand to Michael Jordan, and it's like this is awesome. There wasn't really any. It's like he already had it, and that was kind of the shtick. Was he says he's like, all day, every day, I'm dreaming up the ultimate shoe. So it's like he already had it in his back pocket. There wasn't any struggle there, but all the same, his performance was fun. He really was the Q of the movie. So for Sonny, who dreamed up the shoe, and Matthew, who executed the shoe, kind of like a Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak type of situation.
Yeah. Well, real quick though, just looking at Peter Moore's like accomplishments, because I didn't dive too deep in this one because it was just kind of a last minute episode. He's credited of designing the Air Jordan 1, the silhouette, the Nike Dunk silhouette, the Air Jordan logo, and then the Jumpman logo. He also, apparently they said the Adidas logo on here. I don't know how that fits in the timeline, but apparently he worked at Nike from 77 to 87. So he worked there for 10 years. So after this movie, he left Nike and then ended up at Adidas, his competitor, which I believe some of these other guys also left and worked to Adidas. They didn't always work at Nike the whole time. Again, we could have had a longer movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just goes to show it's pretty incredible. I just think overall, this was a pretty cool, interesting story.
Yeah, no doubt. So we landed number 3. Good job, Ben Affleck. You've done it again, proven yourself to be a kick-ass director. So, yeah, Sonny and Matthew. Thanks, fellas. Where's my close? There it is. Cheers, sir.
Cheers.
Good night, y'all.
Ooh.